Folks, today we are taking a look at Fallout 76. Normally what we do is we look at like medium, low, high, ultra, and then like 1440p, 1080p, 4K. Now the difference with this game is there's no built-in benchmark, and it's even hard to do a run. Night cycles, day cycles, weather cycles, there's people in the area because it's an open world, like sort of MMO RPG kind of game. It's very difficult to actually get a consistent run. So the methodology for this one is I'm just going to play the game. I feel like that's the best way. Normally a benchmark might give you an idea of, okay, I'm getting this amount of FPS on this map or this area, so I can kind of figure out what I'm going to get on all the other ones. Fallout 76 is difficult for the reasons I just mentioned, and all these things is they're not scientific, they're not perfect. Run-to-run variance happens, part variance happens, Shadowplay takes off a few FPS off the top values, you know, I've got Discord on in the background, I've got Spotify on, that might take a percentage or two off the CPU, which might change a frame. But the point is, I'm trying to make these videos for maybe some niche games or just a wide variety of games, so you can figure out, is this the card that I want to buy? Is this the processor I need? And just inform you. So yeah, it's not the most highly scientific value I'm going to put out. You know, if I come out and say you're going to get 93 FPS, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But that's the methodology, and I thought I'd explain it a little bit in more detail because it's a bit of a different game, it's a bit of a difficult game to benchmark, so I think the best idea, again repeating myself, is to just play the game. So let's just go straight into it. This is 4K maxed. Now this is a 1440p video, but it was recorded and played in 4K max. I'm merely posting it in 1440p to save myself some space on the upload, as these things take a couple days to upload due to my internet speed. So I'm not a massive Fallout player, I've never played the franchise before, and I generally kind of am a noob, right? I'm a low level account, I don't have access to all the gear, but I do have the ability to run around, play the game, test it, and that's what we're doing. So the best I could do for you are these two scenarios. The first scenario you're seeing is a 4K nuke. These events occur randomly, I presume. People set them off, and obviously me not being a Fallout 76 player, I don't get to catch these very often, so I heard there was an event going, I joined it, and you're just seeing now what the frames are. Now if you do this event on 4K Ultra and you're getting 10 FPS and I'm getting 80, that's going to give you some valuable information. I can't tell you these are the exact frames you're going to get at 4K Ultra with a nuke going off, because the game's different. Night cycles, day cycles, there's different players, there's different builds. I'm just showing you what I experienced, and this is what I experienced 4K maxed with the nuke. Going into the actual gameplay itself, it was very smooth. So inside the nuke area, it kind of held about you know, like a kind of 90 frame average. There was some 120 highs, some 60, I think it was 60 or 80 lows. I think it was about 64 low. In the actual gameplay itself, it was very smooth. Now again, this could be that I was in a very untesting area. I'm in an open field, there's rain, and all I'm doing is exploring just like a player would do. I'm going into the buildings, I'm having a route around, I'm shooting the stuff that attacks me, and this is kind of how it went. In the fields and in the sort of woodland area, it was basically about 130 high to about 70-80 low, and it was averaging again about 90, and 90 FPS is enjoyable. You could lock this to 60 and really enjoy yourself, and if you've got a high refresh rate monitor, you can definitely take advantage of it. So this game doesn't seem that unoptimized. Now processor wise, it's only really using 4 cores. The rest of the percentages on all the other cores are just background processes, basically occasionally taking effect. It's not going to utilize 16 cores clearly. But the game was very smooth, surprisingly. I thought this, with all the memes online about what a bad game it is, I thought when I downloaded it I was going to play this awful looking game, bad frame rate, and I was actually very surprised by the game. I only have had a chance to play a minimal amount of time as a benchmarker, quote benchmarker. You know, I've got a lot of games installed and I'm trying to get through them all, so I don't have tens of hours to sink into the game, but you know, there's a lot of immersion going into the game, and I enjoyed it. I've not played Fallout before, and I've only heard bad things about this game, but I actually really enjoyed myself, and I can see myself playing some more. So I know that's a side note, but I just thought I'd mention it because maybe there's a few people from my YouTube channel that are regulars, and they're thinking about looking at this game and they're wondering what it's about. It's a survival game, so there's online players, events to do, there's a story mode, and I thought it was really good. I was surprised. Now as I'm talking, you can see that the FPS average it's been about 100. It's been about 100, which for 4K maxed, very, very good, honestly. I was surprised, I really was surprised. When we get into the shooting area, I've gone into this like Mothman zone. The FPS did go down. There was a few tanks to like 57 when a helicopter spawned. It was spraying up dust everywhere. But again, even in the intense action of shooting and everything, it was staying average 100. So when the nukes were going off and all the builds were going off, it was like 80, 90 average. The general gameplay plus some intense fighting scenes, you're averaging like 100, and you're still, you know, you're still basically peaking to 165, you know, that sort of high refresh rate zone. So I thought it was a really good game, and in honesty, I've had a look at a lot of games now that I've played, and they don't run as well as this, and I thought this was going to be, quote, mean game, bad optimization, gets no frames, but it really was pushing the card. So in 4K, very, very playable with this setup, as it should be, but some games don't. But so hopefully this has given you an idea of really what to expect with your gameplay. I was surprised by it, and I thought it ran very well and looked very well, very good as well. If we take a look at some 1440p footage, this is 1440p maxed, which I guess is ultra, you would call it. I tried to do roughly the same route, which was sort of running from my camp. I kind of went up this mountain, had a look around at the sort of vistas, the skies, did some looting, looped through some, I guess you would call it like general mountain area, rivers, buildings, shot some people. I tried to keep it roughly similar, so there's at least some consistency there for you. And in the fields on 1440p, it was that you got that bit more frame rate. You were talking an average of honestly, after the run, it was about a 150 average. The lows were about 70, and it maxed out at 287, which probably was when I was in the Pip-Boy, I believe it's called. So generally, it ran very well. Again, it wasn't absolutely pinning my card. It was probably about 80% usage. I've played some games at 1440p, like say StarCraft, which are like 60% usage, so it's not massively optimized, it's not 100% usage, but it's not the worst one we've ever played. And again, entirely playable and enjoyable experience. I think if you were to pick this up, you certainly wouldn't have a oh no, this is stuck at 60 type of experience. Just to note, to get above 60, you do need to go into the .ini file and change one of the settings, which I'll put in the description if you are stuck, because when I first loaded up this game, it was locked to 50 FPS, which was a weird value, not 60, not 165, 50. So just to note, but very, very smooth experience on 1440p Ultra. Now moving on to 1440p low, was jump through some gameplay, and the values honestly were about 200 average, which is pretty crazy, and on the highs we had 300, which is pretty similar to 297. It was probably when we opened up the Pip-Boy, and the minimums were 90. So it's kind of one of those games where the quote unoptimized, but what I mean by that is your lows are all going to be roughly the same. Your averages may go up, your maximums may go up, but it's generally a very similar experience between low and ultra. So if I had a 3080 and I was playing this game, I would definitely play 1440p ultra, just because it's probably going to drop down anyway in certain areas, just naturally. What I'm trying to say is, if you put the game on 1440p low, it's not going to stop those random tank downs to, say, you know, your 60-70 FPS areas. That's just going to happen, just the way the game is. There's a lot of structures placed, people's camps, random objects and stuff. But you will get more average frame rate with low, but I don't think the trade-off's worth it. The gameplay itself on 1440p Ultra was almost high refresh rate levels anyway, so playing on low doesn't really make much sense. And I haven't included 1080p footage this time just because it didn't seem to really make sense. Some games you would play high refresh rate 1080p and you would want the most frames humanly possible for esports. I don't think anyone is buying an RTX 3080 to play a game on 1080p low, or maybe they're playing on 1080p ultra. It's very, very similar to like the 1440p low, 1440p ultra experience. It's at times a little bit lower, just because naturally 1080p, well, for those that don't know, it's a lot less resolution, a lot less pixels to be driven. So on these games that don't naturally use a lot of your card, when you drop that resolution, they use even less of your card and your frame rate actually goes down. So I haven't tested it, but personally, just from experience, I would say that 1080p is probably going to net you lower frames than at 1440p, just because enabling that higher resolution bumps up your frame rate because it's actually using the card. So this one was a bit of a different video. Normally my benchmarks try to be somewhat value orientated so you can have a look, but the way the game is built, the nature of the game, I felt like it was best just to play the game, show you some frame rates, and you can judge for yourself if it's maybe you're a Fallout main channel and you're looking to step up and upgrade. Maybe it's a game that's on your periphery. It was a game that was kind of shunned in the media. You've got a 3080 or a more modern card like a 3070, and you're thinking to yourself, do I want to play that game? How would it run? Well, here it is. So there you go. It's obviously not using 16 cores. It's obviously not using a lot of your CPU. It's using about 12%. No game pushes this processor, to be honest. Some games that are very well optimized will push it to about 40%. This isn't doing that, but neither does it need it. It's clearly doing a high refresh rate on its own. So that was it. That was the Fallout 76 benchmark / test. Hopefully that helped you. Leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, check me out on Twitch. Alright, peace.